Zeitgeist always moves. And in this country, we look back oftentimes at the stuff that we did as a society and say, what were we thinking?
A couple of years, things may change when all the kids grow up and start wearing ties and going to the polls.
You ever have that feeling where you're not sure if you're awake or still dreaming?
Yeah, man, me too, motherfucker. Me too. Me too. Me too. Me too. Me too. Me too.
It did.
I want to thank you for coming on today. I got notice that your lawsuit was filed against the county. You sent that information to me yesterday, and I appreciate you letting me help you put this out.
Oh shit, it's my pleasure, man. I appreciate you having an interest in it and wanting to do it and having a platform to do it. You know, I've filed 2 other lawsuits and also sent those to the local papers in Lawrence, and you know, they don't do it justice. So
No.
I'm more than happy to be here talking with you, because as an independent journalist who has a passion for what's right, we're going to get this out there and not have the liberal spin on it there in Lawrence.
Well, I'll let you label it however you want, but the spin is there. And I will say that it's unfortunate that the newspapers locally only put out the facts that make it look the way they want it to look. So let's actually talk about the real facts. As you saw in the intro, that the lawsuit, the case number is 5. That's the Fifth Circuit 24 CV 4005, and this is filed against pretty much the whole county. We've got the sheriff, Jay Armbrister, Tyler Cruzel, and Jimmy Wold, who will talk about arresting you, and the commissioners will talk about shutting you down. You know, as I read through this, I was here during these times, and this isn't the narrative that we were told of what was going on. And I've seen some of the evidence, and I know these are the facts of what actually occurred, regardless of what somebody wants to put out. But we've got all the people listed, and you know, Justin, you were quite a prolific protester. Protested the mask mandates. People didn't agree with you, and it became confrontational at times.
Yep, it sure did. And then I continued that protest spirit when I ran for Douglas County Commissioner. Starting in April of 2022, I would go and campaign by also standing on the street corner with my protest signs. And those are with my campaign signs, and those campaign signs factor into the lawsuit here.
Exactly. And especially, you know, one of the things I keyed in on is the way the commissioners acted in creating the rules. They created as your attorney put here in the filing, a hodgepodge of vague public comment restrictions. And looking down through here, it's pretty clear that they actually took no legal action to do these things. They just directed staff to change things without a vote, and basically circumvented the meetings process, the rules of order to do this. And it seemed like the rules just kept changing depending on what they needed to do to control you.
Right. And so, as your intro to this video, says, and you're just kind of speaking directly to the population there, the community there in Lawrence, is that this was all going on, and potentially all of uh, their rights were potentially could also be impacted as well. So this is also a fight for American rights as well. So community might not like me, might hate me, might disagree with me, but we're gonna hold the county commission accountable for what they've done, pretty much under everybody's nose. Like you said in your intro there,
Yep.
this was all available to the community, but for whatever reason they're either ignoring it, asleep, happy that it's happening because it's happening to me, whatever the reason. But these are things that need to change. So, for example, one of the things in there is that they added, the county commission added this language that you can't do any campaigning during general public comment, and they enacted it like you just said there, like it's said in the complaint that we filed. They enacted it without voting on it, putting it out in an agenda for the community to be aware of, so that they could come in and petition their government, whether they want them to do it or not. But the community didn't get that, didn't get that option, didn't get that right to do that. And that's just one example of it. There are other ones as well where they were just making up rules as they go. And it's also circumventing the state legislation as well. So you had basically just an unchecked government there, just doing whatever the hell they wanted to.
Well, and the reality of this is if they can do it to one person, they can do it to others. And
That's
so
exactly
whether
right.
or not somebody likes who they're doing it to or not, or somebody thinks that it's okay to do it to them, turnabout, I noticed in here in the lawsuit where you were talking about what if you came in, vote blue always, and they shut you down, how would you feel?
Well, it's a legitimate point. I was running for county commissioner. I get elected and I get up there, and if that were to happen, and then the lefties come in and say vote new blue no matter who, and what if I were like, no, I don't like that, get out of here, which is what was happening to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it right just because your political opponent is on the other end of that authoritarianism directed at him. It doesn't make it right, because it will happen to you. And that's just the short-sightedness of pretty much everybody, is that they're like, well, I don't have to worry about it. It ain't happening to me. Well, you know what? You might wake up one day and the world has changed, where you now have a different opinion, or you have a change of mind,
Mm-hmm.
whatever the case. You just never know. And that's why this stuff needs to be challenged, and that accountability needs to have to preserve our rights. Because like you said again in your introduction, this is all happening under people's noses, simply because they were not paying attention, or they liked that it was happening to me because they didn't like me.
Right. They supported getting rid of you because they thought you were just hassling everybody.
And
Um,
at the same time, by doing that, they ended up, the community ended up screwing themselves, because they could do that, it could happen to them.
and it actually has. They've gone so far as to play those games in the city commission room with people and throw people out and restrict people from being in there. And that's the whole point of this, is that you can't silence somebody you disagree with. You don't have to agree with them. Justin and I don't always agree on things, and it doesn't matter, because we each have the right to speak. And that's where my support for all these lawsuits is that we have to preserve the right to speak, whether it's Justin suing or a commissioner suing for the same right. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
And it's un-American what the county commission did, the school board did, who I'm also suing, the city commission did, who I'm also suing, the library did, I'm also suing. And if you listen in one of the incidences that happened at the county commission meeting, where I'm being removed by deputies, you can hear me saying, this is America, man. This is
Mm-hmm.
America. And we need to get back to realizing what that means. And in America, we can say what we want. That's called freedom of speech. I don't give a shit about hate speech. I don't care, because it doesn't exist to me. I don't care about, if it offends people. This is America. And anybody that tries to shut down speech under whatever guise, whether they want to say it's hate speech, or you're being mean, or you're offending people, they are un-American. And what should be uniting us all is that as Americans, we should be appalled and upset that this is happening. And it's like I always say, this isn't happening in San Francisco or New York City or Portland. It's happening in the middle of the country in Kansas.
Well, and
And
we're
that's what we
seeing
need to
it.
wake up to.
We're seeing it in other ways too. I mean, for example, the Marion raid on the newspaper.
Yeah.
That is a silencing of free speech that happens. The difference there is the Marion newspaper had tremendous and widespread public support, whereas you didn't.
I know, man, and I can't figure that out, and which is again why I'm really glad and appreciative and grateful that you're covering this, because I've sent these lawsuits, the past lawsuits, I've sent them to all the major newspapers and the affiliates here in the Kansas City area, and they've all declined to report on it. Meanwhile, reporting on other First Amendment cases that have happened after I filed. Other
Now,
First Amendment cases in the past, they won't do it. And and I think they're just as un-American as the commissioners that are trying to fucking silence me.
Yep. We're on page 12 of the lawsuit here on the screen. And one of the things that I keyed in on was they use these words to describe things, that your speech and demonstrations were bizarre, abnormal, or out of the ordinary. And I guess one of the key questions I would ask them is, how do you describe what a normal speech and demonstration is? Because we've seen the Black Lives Matter protests in the streets, and we've seen immigrant protests in the streets. We've seen the bisexual trans protests in the streets. Would any of those be considered bizarre or abnormal?
I know that's a great point. I mean, BLM, they're throwing bricks through windows. Meanwhile, I'm standing on the corner with a sign, and that's bizarre. Explain to me, someone explain to me what is so different about that. The hypocrisy runs deep.
Yep. And then I want to hit on, especially here on page 12 and going into page 13, it starts to discuss an actual conspiracy that formed. Jay Armbrister, our sheriff, was the one to approach commissioners. Is that correct?
Yep.
And he approached them with the intention of getting them to direct you out of the room?
Yeah.
And why did he do that? I mean, what was his motivation for doing that, do you think?
Well, we'd have to ask Armbrister, but basically what happened is I came walking into that April 20th meeting, county commission meeting, and I had just got done standing outside on the corner outside of the courthouse. It's a busy intersection there. And I had my campaign sign, and I brought that sign with me into the county commission meeting, and that sign said, "Vote Dr. Speece, Douglas County Commission, fuck these liberal motherfuckers." And I go walking in there, minding my business, and I go up to the podium to sign in. This is before the meeting has started, going to sign in to speak during general public comment. And as I'm doing that, he comes right up to me and he says, "You can't be in here with that sign. You got to leave with that sign." I said, "Oh yeah, why is that?" And he says, "Because it has foul language on it." I said,
Okay,
"For
I want to
shit,
hold
it
you right
does."
there, because that right there is the epitome of the 1971 Cone v. California decision. And it's actually the same exact word, because Mr. Cone went with, was it a sign that had fuck the draft, wasn't it?
It was, I think it was a shirt, wasn't it? Or
A
his
shirt that
jacket.
said fuck the draft, but it's the same exact word. And so it's directly on point. And how could they not be aware of this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when I tell him horse shit, it does, he goes, "Okay, then," and walks up to the commission and who are sitting there. Again, the meeting hasn't started, but the county commissioners, there's three of them, are sitting up at their seats, and he proceeds to talk to them. And then shortly after that, I get arrested and removed from the meeting. And while I'm standing in the sally port at the jail, one of the deputies that's on the lawsuit there tells me that when Armbrister went up there to talk to the commissioners that that's what it was about, to have me removed from the meeting.
And
And
isn't that the basis of a conspiracy?
seems like it to me. Yeah,
I mean,
And
they're conspiring to violate a First Amendment right that's been well established by Supreme Court precedent.
yeah.
So, and then here's an interesting one, and I told you to mention this to your attorney, because they they came to blame YouTube for the reason your videos were being removed, or the videos of you doing public comment.
Mm-hmm.
They said YouTube's policies were forcing those videos to be taken down.
Mm-hmm.
And did you ever get that in actual writing? Do we have that in writing somewhere?
What's that?
Or is it just them saying it up there? Did they ever produce anything from YouTube that said that?
Um, like an actual written like policy or decision from YouTube?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of off the top of my head.
Well, the reason I'm asking that is because as a YouTube creator myself, I know how the YouTube restriction policies work. And because of a video has foul language in it, such as this one will right here, YouTube does not ban that video from their platform. What they may do is they may monetarily restrict it, make it where you can't earn revenue off of it or advertising revenue, and they can restrict its reach, like not make it recommended in their algorithm, and so that video won't get viewed as much. But the idea that YouTube could force, just take down the county's video, I'd like to see that message from YouTube that the county received.
Yeah, and so for those out there that need a little background on that, so they had YouTube had initially removed an entire video of the meeting, and what ended up happening, according supposedly, is that as sort of a compromise, I guess, the county was going to record the county commission meetings, video record them, but stop recording general public comment, and then post that video up there. And so that's exactly what was happening. So you go in, as soon as general public comment started, you'd hear recording stopped. And then we do general public comment, and then you'd hear recording started. And, you and I were on top of that shit right away, because that was wrong. That was wrong. That for a lot of reasons, but one of them was the community then couldn't hear general public comment. And the thing that's upsetting to me about that is, at that time, like I mentioned, I was running for Douglas County Commissioner, so I was going and speaking to people all over the place, and primarily in Republican groups, letting them know what's going on, and none of them cared enough to show up. And my hunch is they probably, because it was me, obviously, they were like, good, screw you, you're embarrassing to us as Republicans, so we're not even going to go in there and even be interested in our local government being complete tyrants, because it's you, Justin. We don't like you. And well, whatever, man, that's on you guys. But no, couldn't get any Republicans fired up down there to go in there and be concerned that this is what was going on. And I'm talking just specifically the commission not posting the general public comment up on their YouTube page.
Well, and you talk about the different places that you went. I do remember the Kansas legislature pulling a video and being forced to put it back up.
Well, as far as I know, they haven't even put it back up. It's still edited.
Oh, it is?
As far as I know.
Okay. Well, then, is that another one on your agenda?
Well, it might be, it might
Well,
be.
I mean, it's obvious that it's a statewide issue. And on the screen here, we're getting down through the arrest portion. We're going to show that video as well. But I want to come on down here post-arrest. These are screenshots, guys, from the actual video that you're going to see here in just a couple minutes. Our sheriff actually threw the sign that Justin had, and I could see that they were applying quite a bit of pain compliance techniques, would you say?
Yeah, while telling me not to resist. They're like, stop resisting. I'm like, I'm not resisting. You can hear it at the very end of the video. I'm saying, I'm not
Yep.
resisting. Like, what are you talking about? There's 3 of you guys. I have my
How
hands
many
behind my
times?
back. I have my
How
hands
many
behind my
times do we
back.
have to hear "stop resisting"? You know,
It's like just automatic for these assholes to say,
I think it is trained to say that because it gets a narrative established on the recording.
Yep.
But here we come down and we talk about the premeditated plan to retaliate for engaging in protected activity, and this is on page 33. And I think your attorney does a good job of laying out the actual conspiracy that occurred. That these people did not like what was being said and formed a plan to limit your ability to speak out and have people hear you. And one of the things that's really impressive to me is he quotes case law dating back to 1689, folks. And right here we have Nibs at 1727. Defendant Spees was confronted and arrested.
Yep.
And I mean, these are ancient suits, and they all relate to the protection of the First Amendment. And that protection is absolute.
Yep.
The only thing that can come into play there is the fighting words doctrine and time, place, and manner. As far as time, place, and manner, you were well within the quintessential time, place, and manner for any kind of a protest. Every time you were out there, you were on a public sidewalk most times or on a public easement, and then you came into commission rooms where we have the constitutional right of redress. And then as far as the fighting words, there were never any challenges, and that's laid out. And I think even the other parties involved, some of them can acknowledge that. It's interesting how the reports are written, that there's certain things included and certain things excluded, similar to the way the newspaper does it.
Yeah.
Let's slip over to that report real quick here. These are the incidents reports. One of the things that they argued in this was that you delayed the meeting, and that was a problem. What time did that meeting start that night?
5:30, like all the other meetings start at 5:30 there.
Okay. Look here, folks. This call cleared at 17:26. That's 3 minutes and 18 seconds before the meeting started. That call was over. There was no delay of meeting, so I think we can put that one to rest.
Well, and their agenda or their minutes from that meeting as well say the meeting started at 5:30.
Right.
So
and notice in here that it's noisy conduct using loud, explicit language. Okay. Is that a violation of the law? Noisy conduct, loud and explicit language?
well, clearly it's not if the other people in the room who were doing the same thing also weren't arrested as
Exactly.
well.
Exactly.
And I'm not
Exactly.
even saying that I am admitting that I was even being loud or noisy. I'm saying that if that's the case, then other people should have been arrested as well, because that's what other people in the room were doing as well. It was
Well,
conveniently overlooked by these guys.
and the other thing is, if we look in the second paragraph here, we see how the situation started. Justin was informed that he would not be allowed to present that sign during the meeting due to the explicit language. There
Right
is
there.
the beginning of the confrontation. You are trying to infringe upon my First Amendment right, and I am pushing back. And next thing you know, somebody becomes criminalized. That's where the problem lies, is around here. If you try to express your rights, they will criminalize you and find a way to put you in jail.
Well, they take your rights from you, and then when and it's like I said all along in this. So I think some people look at the First Amendment being a violation. They go, "Oh, okay, what a big deal." But no, when it happens to you, they're taking your voice from you, and when you have your voice taken from you, is a very precarious situation to be in. It's a very upsetting situation to be in. It's an anxiety-provoking situation to be in because you don't have a voice. And so, what is your reaction supposed to be? Oh, okay, you took it. I'll see you guys later. You got to fight for your rights, man. And when it happens to you, when you've been violated, what exactly is the reaction supposed to be? It's one thing to pass judgment when it hasn't happened to you. It's another thing if you've been in that situation. What it feels like when the whole community is against you and taking your voice from you. what kind of reaction would anybody else have?
Mine originally started as anger, and
Hmm.
it took a long time to get past that and get into a resolve status. But looking back at this report, here's where they leave things out. We know Jay Armbruster threw that sign, but it's not mentioned in Tyler Cruzel's report. And I went down here to the next one. What was it, Jimmy Vold?
It's either
No,
Wold or Coleman.
no. Okay, Coleman was walking up the stairs as you were getting escorted out. But here's Wold, who was inside the room. And again, as we look down through here, it's in the paragraph right here in the middle. RO watched as Sheriff J. Armbruster, who was seated in the gallery at the back of the room, approached Spies and told him to leave. They exchanged words, and if you read on down through here, they began escorting him out. Where'd the sign get thrown? I don't see it in there.
Yep,
That's
they don't
interesting.
mention it. They don't mention it. Another thing left out is that Jay Armbruster himself doesn't have a report, even though he's the arresting officer who initiated the entire incident. He doesn't have a report. It's like, why? Where is his statement on this?
Well, does he not need to prepare one because he was part of the conspiracy to get you out of there? He can't write a report really without not telling the complete truth, can he?
Yeah, I know. I know. Well,
Anyway,
and so the deputies wrote reports without telling the complete truth as well. I mean, like you just mentioned, left out the fact that the sign was taken from me and thrown angrily. I mean, the thing hits the banister, it like spins up into the air,
uh-huh.
which is right in front of me, right in front of my face. Could have hit somebody else. Could have, it could have done a lot of things.
Yep, yep. And if that would have been you throwing that sign, it would have been some kind of an attempted battery or an
Felonies. Yep,
additional disorderly
felonies.
conduct charge,
Oh, they would have gone
something.
felony on me. Oh yeah, for sure. No
Yeah,
doubt about it. No doubt about it.
yep. Looking back to the complaint, it lays out that Dr. Spee's only crime was his refusal to follow a suggestion to leave. And
Hmm.
beyond that, he defended his right to speak. And that's
Yeah.
really what happened here.
But if you see the video, so the video comes from a Lawrence Times reporter that was in the courtroom at the time, starts recording right before I get arrested. And Armbruster approaches me and says, "Get up, get out." And I'm just like, for what? First of all, I haven't done anything. Second of all, I have the right to be here. What do you mean get out? Why do you get to ask me to get out of here? Why? What have
Right.
I done? And then it escalates. So then he puts his hands on me. So he hasn't said I'm under arrest. He hasn't said disorderly conduct. He puts his hand on me and tries to lift me up out of my seat, puts his hand up underneath my arm to lift me up out of the seat. And I'm like, no, what are you doing? You don't just get to do that shit to somebody. And then that's when the other deputies come in and they remove the sign, take the sign out of my hand, try to take the sign out of my hand. And then Armbruster gets it and throws it. And even then, Michael, I didn't know I was under arrest. You can hear me saying, I want my shit back because I think that they're just removing me from the meeting. It's still
Uh-huh.
for no reason. And I don't know why, but I don't think I'm being arrested because, first of all, I haven't been told. And second of all, I haven't done anything for me to even go, okay, yeah, I guess I'm being arrested. No, I didn't know that. I was like, I want my sign back. If you're making me leave the meeting, I want my sign back. You can't just take my sign from me.
Yep. Now here, string of authority from 1689 to 2018 that their conduct was flagrant. Well, that's a tough word. Flagrantly violative of the First Amendment, and
Yep.
I qualified immunity's focus is on whether the officer had fair notice,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't see how they couldn't have had fair notice, especially with the way Armbruster initiated this with the commissioners.
Yep.
He had to have known there was something there was a problem with that. I'm surprised if he didn't.
Well, you'd have to ask Armbruster. You have to ask him, and hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it. But the words on my sign were offensive to them, and he didn't like me for whatever reason, and so he threw a fit, I suppose.
Well, in here, because Dr. Spees used derogatory language at us, it's because of his vulgar language. Now that's a Commissioner Reed stating that.
Now that's a separate incident. So the arrest happened in April 20th, 2022. The following month, I think that's May 25th, 2022. I went in there, and I also just want to kind of point out here, both of those times I was in there by myself. I went there by myself. Don't have anybody with me. There's no group of Republicans that are, going or anything. It's just me. And I go up there to speak. May 25th meeting, general public comment. I go up there and I say, evening theys, evening beta males. I want to start with a quote from Einstein, who said the thing about crazy motherfuckers is that or the thing about smart motherfuckers, they look like crazy motherfuckers, the stupid motherfuckers. And as soon as I said that, she muted my mic. And I said, turn my mic back on. She's like, no, I'm not going to turn your mic back on. I said, why not? And she said, because you directed foul language at us, and or you directed derogatory language at us, and you used vulgar language. And so right there, those are, as laid out in the complaint, those are, that's violation of free speech right there.
That's a clear violation. And how does an elected county commissioner not know that derogatory language and vulgar language is protected speech? I mean,
I know. How could they not know that? And it goes back to what I'm saying. I'm not just using, words here that don't apply, but it is un-American.
Mm-hmm.
It is un-American, because any American would just sit there and listen and be like, okay, you got free speech, talk. But not with these guys, because they're un-American. They will not. They don't. They I don't know what it is. They just are a bunch of whiners, I suppose.
And here we are in paragraph 144, where they start discussing the YouTube notification, that the YouTube had notified the commission that the public comments had violated its terms, but it didn't explain to the commission why or how. That's not accurate. Anything that comes from YouTube that restricts or somehow limits whether the video can be out, they're going to explain why. And they're going to tell you exactly why. And if it's a copyright strike, you're going to get contact information to reach out to that individual. If it's language or content or something, you're going to get specific opportunities that they lay the video out, and they highlight the time segment, and they give you an opportunity to go back and correct those time segments where there's a problem. They literally tell you what time segments are the problem in your video when it gets rejected. So the idea that they had no idea that happened, I mean, I can print out stuff from my channel that'll show those things happening. And I can't see how they didn't happen with the commission. It's the same platform under the same policy guidelines. So
I know. And it's another thing where the community, especially on this issue, because with the others, I get it. People don't like me, so they're probably happy that I'm being silenced. I don't agree with that. I don't like it, and it upsets me. But the YouTube one, that affects the entire community. And again, nobody really seemed to care. Me, you, and a couple of my friends, we raised the issues.
Yep.
Throughout that whole time. It was over a month's period of time. We raised that issue, but nobody else. And maybe maybe you have the answer to it. I don't know why. What are people, what has to rise enough to make people go, okay, hold on, I'm paying attention now.
Well, unfortunately, it usually takes death. I mean, literally, before people pay attention anymore, it's got to be shock media or something. This one on the screen right now, I remember this because I was sitting right behind you when this one happened. You had that sign in there, and it said, vote Dr. Spees. And did it have the fuck these liberal motherfuckers on it?
It's in the complaint. I think that one is, I think it said tired of the bullshit.
Yeah, that's right. It said tired of the bullshit. This picture right down here at the bottom is from me sitting. It's a screenshot from my video. Now, Deputy Steele came up and at the direction of Jill Joliker or at the direction of somebody, wanted you to leave with that sign. And it was interesting that since I was back there recording, this is the one time a county person told the deputy to back down with you. Was that the first time that a county person had ever let something go with you?
Yeah, I suppose so, as far as I recall.
Now, it's
Um,
interesting that the first time they let something go with you is when an objective camera is sitting right behind you and recording everything. Isn't that interesting?
yeah, when they're being held accountable, and
It,
and it catches them in the act of doing something wrong,
yep.
they back down. And the other thing with that is, for your viewers watching this and listening to this, is don't back down.
Right.
So when he came up to me and said I needed to move my sign, I said, what rule am I violating? Because I knew I wasn't violating any rule. I hadn't done anything wrong. So why? What have I done? He couldn't answer it. Of course. Same thing with armbrister. I said, why do I gotta leave? Tell me why. What am I doing? What did I do wrong? Same thing I
Hmm.
said to the police officer that when I got escorted out of the city commission meeting, I said, what did I do wrong? Tell me what rule I violated. And they can't. They can't tell you that. They couldn't tell me that.
No, they're just following
Um,
orders like a good Nazi does.
right, yeah. And yeah, exactly. It's bullshit. And so I just said, I said no. I said no and tell me what I did wrong. And while that's going on, that's when you walk in. If you watch the county commission video play out, you come walking in, and I'm aware that you walked in. I'm aware you sat behind me. And in your video, you can see me turn around and look at you. And the reason why I do that is because I'm looking to see if you're recording, because I know in that moment something illegal is happening, something wrong is happening.
Hmm.
And I look back there, make sure you're recording. I'm like, all right, good, because it needed to be captured because it was wrong. I could feel it, I could tell it. It was obvious, and they backed down because of the camera and because they were wrong and they were being caught being wrong.
And at this time, it's useful to point out that you and I weren't in together. We weren't talking to each other really. And you had kind of had some coarse words for me about not sticking up for you enough at that time. So let's
Yeah,
be real.
yeah,
It was an objective camera that wasn't Justin's friend at the time. It was just somebody that was there saying, hey, wait a minute, you can't silence somebody because you don't like what they say. And
right.
it was right along that time where I went in there and laid out George Carlin for them.
Yep.
And they didn't stop me. They didn't throw me out. They didn't arrest me. um, that is pretty hard to deny some preferential treatment there because I like laid out a whole set of words and they did
Well, yeah,
nothing.
you said the exact same word that I said that got me, like we just talked about, Shannon Reed shutting off my mic and then me getting escorted out of there. We both said motherfucker, and and
Yep,
there were different. It was handled differently.
yep. And I told them they're just words. They're just
Yep,
words.
they're just
And
words, guys. They're
I,
just words.
they still don't get it because even last week they're still reading the same instructions for public comment. And I expect tonight they're going to read the same instructions for public comment. And we'll see if by next week they haven't rethought these instructions.
Yeah,
So,
I know. Yeah, we'll see, huh?
because I don't, you said they're not aware of this yet. Have they been
Uh,
served the lawsuit yet, as far as you know?
haven't been served. The lawsuit was just filed late yesterday, so as far as I know, they're not aware of it at this point. Um, yeah,
Well,
they're not aware that it's been filed unless they're checking and looking, or
well,
or if somebody's checking and looking and let them know.
well. I think it's pretty clear that the newspapers aren't because I've mentioned several filings to them that they weren't aware of in the past.
Yeah,
There's
surprise.
the first cause of action, obviously, the violation of the right to petition. Everybody in this country has the right to petition. Rude, vulgar, inappropriate words, those are viewpoint based. You can't limit those. It's that simple. And Cone v. California, again, covers the constitutionality of vulgar language. Second cause of action is the same as the other lawsuits: content and viewpoint discrimination. Again, you don't have to agree with the person, but you can't just silence them and throw them out, spit on them, pull guns on them, and throw them in jail.
Yeah, and
That,
it's also, it's also compelled speech, because if they're saying that our rules are you can only say nice, happy things about us, that's compelled speech.
right,
and
right.
and it's dictating the record and the narrative for the community tuning in and looking at it and be like, oh, okay, they must be doing a great job. There's only positive things being said about these guys.
And
And
the best example of that is when a dictator president gathers a group of people in a big square somewhere to sing his praises and puts it all over the TV. That's the same exact thing.
right, yep, exactly. And so you get the impression that everyone supports this and supports this commission, supports this leader.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because they're making it so that you can't say what you want to say. They're obviously restricting free speech there.
And at the same
And
time, they're pulling down the videos that show what actually happened. Because I've gone back and tried to find some of these videos on the county website. They're not on YouTube, and I can't find them on the county website. And I think it was about a week ago, I asked one of them about it, and they seemed confused about why I couldn't find the videos. And I doubt anybody's confused. I'm pretty sure it was an effort to get them down because there's only certain videos missing.
I know, and that's also what removing the general public comment recording from their record does as well on YouTube, is that you physically cannot go back. Anybody in the community cannot go back and look at general public comment from that time period because it is not there. So you don't even have an idea of what the community is even saying to these people. You could go and look at the meeting minutes, but the person that's putting in the meeting minutes, ain't doing word for word transcription on that.
No,
It's
they're summarizing your speech the way they see it.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. They're summarizing it through their perspective, which they've shown already to be biased.
Right.
And so you're not getting the facts of the matter of the actual meeting as well. And the other thing as we're going through these causes of action that I want everyone to keep in mind is that during this time, if I was just it's the citizen, and this was happening, these are outrageous violations, they're egregious violations. But also keep in mind at this time, I was filed for and running for Douglas County Commissioner. At each one of these instances against one of the, I was running against one of the commissioners up there, Democrat Patrick Kelly. In essence, the government was silencing political opposition,
Mm-hmm.
A political candidate. Again, if that don't get people riled up and upset about that, then I don't know what will.
Well, we can differ. The political candidate stuff that can be stretched out into a lot of areas. I want to draw a big difference here with any other area that could be stretched to, is that you have a political candidate who hadn't violated any laws.
Yeah.
And so now we get down to the freedom of speech retaliation, freedom from retaliation. And I think everything we've talked about has been nothing but retaliation for the speech. And let's get down to fourth cause, equal protection of the law. And this directly applies to when I went in there and spoke and nothing happened, versus when Justin comes in there with a sign that says "fuck these liberal motherfuckers," he gets arrested. That is not equal protection under the law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what's interesting about each one of these lawsuits with the school board, the city, and the county is that there are examples of people doing the same thing, saying the same things that I said, and I'm getting arrested, removed, banned, whatever the case is in each one of those.
Yep.
There's some kind of consequence and repercussion for someone similar situated to me doing as well, and being allowed to do it.
Yep. No, and plaintiff is a class of one, and that really does delineate what happened. The only person that was getting thrown out at that time was you.
Mm-hmm.
Did Joe or Sue or any of them ever get thrown out?
Nope, just me.
Just you.
Yep, just me. Just me. And I'm not even using them as an example. Like going back to the school board, the superintendent's pastor goes in there and gushes about the superintendent, but as soon as I start to bring up something about the superintendent, it's not allowed.
Right.
Well, hold on a second. What are you talking about? He just said something to him. What the heck, man? Why can't I?
And that's a clear challenge. Now, these last two, I want to help people understand. The violation of plaintiff's First Amendment right to freedom of speech, declaratory and injunctive relief as an applied challenge. Now, can you help us understand exactly what that is?
Yeah, let me look at this.
Because the way I understood this was more about the ignorance of your right to challenge their authority.
Well, we're making, we're saying that the way that they have these quote unquote policies written, they are, they're vague and they're also unconstitutional. And because they're vague and unconstitutional, you can't expect the citizenry to go in there and know exactly what they. It's why free speech exists. You don't have to be like, okay, can I say it? Can I not say it? But they're saying things like, you can't campaign, you can't come in here and campaign. Well, what does that even mean? Can you define that for us? It's such a vague and overbroad and overgeneral thing that you might be able to go in and say it something, but on another day you might not, depending on who's up there making the split, the subjective decision if they like you or not. And on top of that, then they're enforcing these rules, or they're coming up with these rules, and they're doing it in an unconstitutional way as well. Of it's not being voted on. The community's not aware of it. It's just happening in the dark. It's happening. The unelected officials, like the county administrator, are going to quote unquote legal and having something drafted up, and then boom, that's good enough. So we're challenging the way that these policies are worded, and also making it so that these repercussions that are dealt out from the commission for quote unquote violating these really abstract, vague, unconstitutional policies in the first place no longer happen.
Right. Now, you mentioned that they go to their legal. Who was the county going to legally?
That I don't know, because it just says quote unquote legal. I think as Patrick Kelly directs the administrator to go to legal to do that. It's similar to what the city does. The city says, can you go to staff and come back with us with the proposal? It's like, well, who are these staff people? Those aren't elected officials. Who are those people?
Yep.
I always assumed, that's why I always encourage people, go to these meetings and you'll get an idea what your local government is. I always assumed that these elected officials were the ones draft, hey, we need a whatever's going on at the city. They need a plan to reduce taxes over a 5-year period. I figured it was them hashing it out, but they're just like, hey, staff, can we get a plan on how to reduce fucking $12 million over here? It's nothing. They're not their ideas. They're just kind of voting on this shit.
Well, and see, that's another problem for another day, but that's what I've noticed about the administrator, city management kind of positions, is they kind of run roughshod over our politicians, and we're going to need to change that as well.
Well, that's exactly right. And the reason, well, there's probably multiple reasons, but one of the reasons is because, they're not elected officials. They can't be doing a poor job and get voted out of there. They can just continue to do a poor job. And as long as they're appeasing the city commission, then, they'll keep their job.
And they are writing rules that say we can't address those individuals who are actually making these decisions.
I know. And they're also getting paid a lot of money too.
Yep. Well, Justin, we've gotten down to the bottom of the lawsuit here, man. I'm going to go ahead and let the viewers see exactly what happened when you were arrested, exactly what happened with Jay Armbruster throwing that sign. And I'm going to wish you the best of luck in this. I hope I see you at more county meetings, because I want to see whether they're going to continue knowing that they're under federal scrutiny now. I wonder if they're going to continue to violate you.
Yeah, that's to be determined. So yeah, I appreciate you wanting to cover this and covering it and putting it out there. And yeah, I hope to see you at the meetings too.
All right, man. I appreciate your time.
Some instructions for public comment to get us started. Before I read through those, just want to briefly address that last week's actually, I'm sorry, it was 2 weeks ago now, which would have been, the date is escaping me, July 6th, I believe. Our meeting had been uploaded, our recorded meeting had been uploaded onto YouTube and was removed by YouTube for violation of their content. Updated our comments, our instructions for general public comment a bit about that. And also just want to give space if either commissioners have any thing to add to that or any details that I may have missed from discussions with staff. Okay. So I will just offer some instructions for public comment before we kick off our meeting. Each action item on the agenda will offer an opportunity for relevant public comment about that topic. We ask that you wait until the agenda item that you're here for comes up for discussion. Additionally, near the start of our meeting, we will invite folks to provide general public comment to the commission, which is a time for addressing issues not on today's agenda, but related to general county business. Just making sure that we didn't have any issues with it doesn't work. Sorry for the interruption.
I've asked you nicely, why you gotta be a jerk about breaking the rules?
All public comments should be directed to the county commission. The public should also know that comments received by the commission during our meetings do not represent the views of the county government. And if deemed to be necessary in the future, we may direct staff to not record public comments out of concern for issues of
For what, man? For what? I want my shit. I want my shit, man. What the fucking treat people with respect? Yeah, man, me too, motherfucker. Me too. Me too. Me too. Me too. Me too. Me too.